She seemed to be intent on not giving any details in case she could somehow be tripped up on them at some later date in the hearing or afterwards. And that was just a disastrous tactic. She was repeatedly asked about timelines, and it turned out she didn't have them. It really was an embarrassment.
And back to where this week kind of started, obviously with that attempted assassination of Donald Trump. Secret Service head Kimberly Cheadle she's finally stepped down overnight. This is, of course, following the Secret Service's total failure to protect the former President Donald Trump at that rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. They had one job and they absolutely botched it. Here is what Speaker Mike Johnson had to say.
Our reaction, the immediate reaction to her resignation, is that it is overdue. She should have done this at least a week ago. I'm happy to see that. I'm happy to see that she has heeded the call of both Republicans and Democrats. Now we have to pick up the pieces. We have to rebuild the American people's faith and trust in the Secret Service as an agency.
And it's no wonder she had to go, especially after that spectacle that was the questioning by the House Oversight Committee on Monday. Quite a sight to behold, both Democrats and Republicans calling for her resignation. But I think this was probably my favourite exchange of the hearing.
Would you agree that this is the most serious security lapse since President Reagan was shot in 1981 of the Secret Service?
Yes, sir, I would.
And, do you know what Stuart Knight did when he was in charge at the time of the Secret Service? You know what he did afterwards?
He remained on duty.
He resigned. What's the difference between your position and what Stuart Knight did?
What I will tell you, sir, is that I am dedicated to finding the answers to what happened. And like every Secret Service agent, we don't shirk our responsibilities. I will remain on.
Douglas, the hubris that was on display at that hearing was absolutely extraordinary. Why on earth did it take so long for that reality to set in?
Well, I watched that hearing and came away with the view that the now former head of the Secret Service has clearly decided that her aim in the hearing was to say as little as possible whilst presenting herself as being as helpful as possible. She wouldn't answer even the most basic questions like, when did you start preparing for this hearing? She said things like, well, to the best of my recollection, or I can't recall, and it was no skin off her nose if she'd have just said, I started preparing the moment I heard, which was 6 days ago, or whatever. She seemed to be intent on not giving any details in case she could somehow be tripped up on them at some later date in the hearing or afterwards. And that was just a disastrous tactic. She was repeatedly asked about timelines, and it turned out she didn't have them. It really was an embarrassment. She was a political appointee of Joe and Jill Biden, was apparently close to them and respected and liked by them when she was in charge of then Vice President Biden's security detail. She obviously was not the right person for this job. She certainly wasn't the right person to represent herself in front of a congressional hearing. And I think it's probably very good that she goes, or she's gone. That said, there is an enormous amount that still needs to be found out and interrogated about exactly what did happen that day at the Trump rally, because there's so many security failings that we now know that have come out. And as I said last week, this is, the world was just too close by a couple of millimeters from something utterly catastrophic happening.
Absolutely, and it's very fair that representatives on both sides of the aisle want to know what happened, because obviously they are all in danger if the Secret Service isn't doing what it needs to be doing. Now, one last topic, and we know Benjamin Netanyahu is in the US to meet with the government in relation to the ongoing war in Gaza. It's been reported that Kamala Harris is going to boycott Netanyahu's address, but that's not all. Apparently, pro-Palestinian protesters have invaded the Capitol building. If this wasn't so serious, Douglas, it would just be the most epic political satire.
Well, yes, but it is very serious because, here we see a very important relationship for America and Israel being put under strain, not by these nincompoop protesters. They should all just be, arrested as anyone else would be if, say, they broke into the Capitol building. But the thing that's putting strain on it is that decision by current Vice President Harris not to preside over the session. I think she's speaking to a high school somewhere in Vermont or something at the time when she could be presiding at that joint session. Clearly, she is making this more of a political point than it needs to be. there has actually always been a great bipartisan agreement in the US on the importance of the American-Israeli relationship. I'm sure the Prime Minister Netanyahu will speak to that when he speaks on Wednesday. And we'll see, but it is a snub actually by Kamala Harris, and a very bad sign. Netanyahu is also meant to be meeting Joe Biden to express his thanks for Joe Biden's support since October, but it's not even clear if that's going to happen, because it's not clear if Biden's well enough to meet him, it seems. So that, according to reports today. So we'll see, but it should be an important time for America and Israel to re-emphasize the strength of that relationship. And if it is politicized by Kamala Harris and others, it'll be to the detriment of both countries, and a lamentable situation which should never have arisen.
No, and I think there's plenty more to come out in the wash there. Thank you so much, Douglas Murray.
Great pleasure. Thank you.